Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this very special interview that we are doing this weekend. Unlike other videos of us, today Abhinav and I won't be deep diving into literature, and we won't be talking about books. But today we'll be talking about one specific book and one specific author who also happens to join us this evening. Hello, Stormy Hazarika. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. What about you guys?
I'm doing good.
All good, ma'am.
So today we'll be interviewing Stormy Hazarika, a renowned teacher and whose debut novel, A River in the Wall, has just released today. So today Abhinav and I will be asking straight questions about Stormy Hazarika, and we try to decode the story behind her first novel and find out a bit more about how she how she arrived at the topic and how she wrote the book and so on. So Abhinav.
Yep. It's an honor to have you here, ma'am, today with us on this particular episode. And definitely it's a pleasure as well having a particular teacher whom we have, had done our, schooling under. And this was completely a pleasure for us. I'll go ahead with the first question then. Tell us about your book. How did you arrive at the subject and what was the inspiration behind it?
Okay, first of all, it is such an honor for me to be here. I mean, it's wonderful to catch up with old students and to see them prospering, as your beard seems to indicate, Abhinav.
Thank you, ma'am.
But we'll take up that story another time. The way I see it, I think the book was born of observation. I mean, I cannot detail a single point or something like that when I felt that, okay, I'm going to write about this story, or this is the plot in my head. Perhaps it began with a character. So I think I thought of this protagonist first, and I won't, put any spoilers here. I thought of this protagonist, and I think based upon that, the plot sort of grew. As Margaret Atwood says, a story begins with characters. So yeah, I think that's the way it came about.
Totally, ma'am. That's a great take. So going ahead, I would like to ask the second one that as a first-time author, what were the challenges you faced in getting your, work published, and the pros and cons around the whole subject?
See, I think a lot of writers have been writing for a lot of time, right? And for me, it wasn't any different. And the competition is intense. I mean, who's not educated today? Everyone's educated, everyone's got a fabulous degree, everyone's got such a lot of experience and a great deal of observation. Personally, if I had to order my daughter's wedding clothes, I would not go to a Gully Mohalla tailor. Although I'm sure, that they may have their merits too. They're cheaper for one thing. I'd go to a designer that was perhaps, more famous, well known, and, had a brand name or something like that. I think it's the same with publishers. After all, everyone is here to make their niche in this world, whether it's in terms of material, success or other successes. So I think big publishers are not very keen on picking up first-time authors, right? But here I'd like to mention the book bakers. My literary agency has this dynamic guy called Suhail Mathur, who heads the whole organization, and he is always on his toes, and he's always pushing us. And his specialty is first-time authors. So, I mean, that comes as such a big break for someone like me.
Totally.
So within, 3-4 months, he just picked up the book and had it placed. So I feel very grateful to Suhail Mathur and the book bakers.
Totally, ma'am. And that's a very fair point and observation as well in terms of how you, collaborated the story. And this is perfect. I think for the next set of questionnaire, I'll hand it over to Akashdeeep and he'll take it.
Yeah, thank you, Abhinav. Stormy teacher, good to have you, and it's an honor to be, talking about your book and your relationship with literature and books. Both of us have been your students back in school.
Different, no? Akash, can I just come in with one point? all the time I was in the director's chair and I was judging your compositions and your answers. Now you're judging me. You're in the director's chair and the questions are being put to me. But go ahead, please. It's great to be here. Go ahead.
Yes, teacher. So I have three back-to-back questions for you. First of all, I'd just like to know, this is not for me per se, because I have known you as a teacher. This is for our viewers. Like, can you tell us about a bit about yourself, where you did your schooling, where you got your degree, and how you started your professional life as a teacher?
Well, I think maybe teaching and writing per se began in those, lonely landscapes of the Bagan, as we call it in Assam. Okay,
Absolutely.
the tea gardens. Dad was a planter. He was an engineer, and we had to spend these long, what modern children would term as boring evenings. So we didn't do anything except run around the garden the whole day. Of course, when we were on holiday from school, and the rest of the time when it was dark, we read. That reading eventually made me decide that I wanted to be a writer. So it started like that. And then teaching, I basically love children. I mean, I feel so happy when my pupils from the past get in touch with me. Oh, what are you doing, man? How are you? And how are things and all? It's always great to catch up, with them. And I am so, so lucky to have a fan base in these 18, 20, 25, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, people who have become doctors, are married and have children. So teaching is not a profession for me. It's not a job for me. It's like it's a passion. I mean, I'd sit down and teach the walls probably if I didn't have a job. Okay, and then it's a very natural progression that when you're teaching others to write compositions or to how to frame literature answers or something, you tend to want to. At least this is the way it was for me. You tend to want to do the same things yourself. And there are ideas all around.
Yeah.
So I began writing stories from as early as maybe class 6, class 7. And then in class 10, I started a novel with my classmates. And then, after I finished my graduation and post-graduation and all that, I got busy with life and all that. Then I came back to writing. After a creative writing course from Delhi, I came back to writing. My schooling was done in Kamal Digboy, the oil town.
Yeah.
And the nuns were very, very disciplined. I mean, they taught us all that, get up at the ring of a bell and things like that. So it was a very sheltered life that I led. But perhaps that is what, I don't know, in some way or the other, we had nothing else to do. There was no TV and there were no phones and things like that. So you either read or you played a sport.
Okay.
Or you taught. Yeah. And as for my education, I studied throughout in Assam. And I'm glad I did. It's such a beautiful place.
Yeah.
A lot of lovely people like you guys there.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Okay, teacher, that brings me to the next question. This is regarding your work and these are basically about the two hats that you don or the two roles that you play as a professional, as a teacher and as a writer. So how do you strike a balance between your work? Like how do you balance, assignments, grading papers, setting questions, preparing for your class and writing, like the things you write, be it a short story or an essay? How do you strike a balance between these two worlds?
To be very honest, Akashdeep, there's no balance. I have to give first priority to my job because that's what puts the bread and butter on the table, right? Yeah. I get in a lot of writing on weekends. I try to do as much as I can on weekends, but then I'm living in a boarding school. I mean, on campus in a boarding school, being responsible for kids away from their parents, places, a great deal of whatever responsibility on us. We are responsible for the well-being of those children, be it academic, be it mental, be it spiritual, physical, whatever it is. So I cannot say that there is a balance. Sometimes I'll write like crazy and then sometimes I don't write at all. You tend to put the job first. At least I do.
Totally.
And since I said I love kids, no, so yeah.
Teacher, I have another question, which is along the lines of writing and books. As somebody who has been associated with English literature for the past almost 3 decades, as you mentioned, do you have any tips that you like to pass on to young aspiring writers, like people who also want, like at one point of time, who do aspire to become a writer and have a book authored by them and take writing as a career? Any tips for such young aspiring writers?
Tips. A 4-letter tip. READ.
Exactly.
Read.
Totally.
That's all. I mean, like, Stephen King puts it very nicely. He says, if you don't read, you don't have the tools to write. It's that simple. I mean, people are trying to write, and that's marvelous. I mean, it's a wonderful thing that so many want to, take up writing as maybe an enjoyable pastime, or they even want to break into the literary world in terms of books and novels and stuff like that. But if you don't read, you do not have the tools to write, and you have to read across a variety of genres. I mean, I personally do not like horror, though at one time I used to read a lot of it, horror, and then detective thrillers and things like that. I mean, there was enough horror in the classroom with people like you guys, but I loved it. I still do. I mean, I have a lot of fun with my kids. So yeah, I think children should read, and it's really commendable that a number of children still read today. I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, that's great. I'll toss it back to Abhinav for the next question.
Sure, Akash. And ma'am, I think as you mentioned, the most paramount factor is reading, again, for a writer, even for a fresh manuscript or somebody with a fresh mind coming through today. And so on those lines, I would also like to go ahead and ask you about your top favorite, 5 books which, made a mark, or in your particular reading, when you were reading all throughout your career. So that's the question, basically.
I wish I was tech savvy and I had the way, a method by which I could show you all the books. These books around me in this room are like my children. How can I play favorites with children? Everyone's the same. Every book has its merits. But beautiful among those, the first that comes to mind is Shantaram. The language is exquisite.
Totally.
And I think I'm past that age where I have to look for thrills in Chor police, style of writing or something like that. I think what attracts me to a book is the language. So Shantaram by Gregory David Roberts is beautiful. It's out of this world. It's amazing, along with a great story. It's really beautiful. And then we have Arundhati Roy. I mean, who can forget her first paragraph in The God of Small Things? I often wonder, where do these people get that inspiration from? How do they create that fabric of such beautifully woven words? So it's language, yeah, in books. And I like Sidney Sheldon for his ability to, twist and turn. I love Khalid Hosseini, though I don't like his third book very much. I like a number of authors. Yeah, so it all depends. I read a lot of non-fiction also nowadays. There are local writers like, writers in Dehradun, like Palash Krishna Mehrotra. He writes
Yes.
beautifully also. So I can't play favorites. I have such a lot of favorite books.
Totally, ma'am. And as you mentioned, the key takes on your perspective on the best books which you have mentioned, I think genre again, and not only genre, sometimes even local writers, as you mentioned, really, puts themselves forward to bring out this.
Have you, Abhinav, sorry to butt in. Have you read Eunuch Park by Palash Krishna Mehrotra?
No,
As I said a little while ago, he's a Dehradun writer, and he's amazing. He's amazing. I mean, I don't know where do people get that kind of inspiration from. Baffles me.
I have to find this book and definitely have to read this one, and especially your one.
And it's not just a one-time thing, no? He keeps writing so well, one book after another.
Yeah.
I'd like to weigh in here. Palas Krishna Mehrotra is also a columnist.
Okay.
He has
He
a regular column
is.
in Business Link, and I have been following it for a long time. And
Oh, so
he's
we are on the same page.
absolutely on this because I feel he's an amazing writer. I've been following it for quite a while now.
Right, and he's an amazing person also.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure he is.
I think local writing, and not only certain local writers everywhere, I mean, they come up with some different angles, which maybe even industry stalwarts of writers in here may not have that aspect of their, their world building around their concept. So that's quite key. And definitely I would like to read his book as well. For the next question, I would like to again pass it over to Akashdeep.
Okay. Stormy teacher, I just wanted to ask you, like, what is next after this? See, like your novel has released today, and I mean, it's all over my social media since morning. I mean, the people who are all sharing it, posting it, and I'm pretty sure, like right now, the delivery services are not that prompt and apt. So after a few weeks, maybe everybody will have it in their hands, and everybody will share. Everybody will be sharing the initial reviews. I just wanted to ask you, what's next? Like, what are you working on? Any other novel or an essay, or what are you working on next?
I do a lot of short pieces for my page, and I write for Medium as well.
Yeah.
But that aside, I am working on a historical narrative, which I hope turns out well. It involves a lot of research, as Abhinav will know, a lot of research. So I'm taking it very slow because there are so many details, and I'd love for it to be placed somewhere. But then, with an agent like Suhail Mathur, I'm sure it will be. So I'm confident about that. Yeah. So to answer your question directly, a historical narrative, something else, not something I've never tried before.
Okay.
I do have other fiction books that I've written,
Okay.
and I will go back to those sooner or later. But for now, I am working on this historical bit of fiction.
Okay, I'm really looking forward to that. And with that, it brings me to the last question of this discussion that we have. Stormy teacher, please tell us something about your personal life, about your hobbies. What do you do when you're not teaching and when you're not writing? What do you do in your free time?
Okay, I read. I cannot dream of not reading.
Exactly.
So my idea of fun is to curl up in bed with a book. It was always that. It's not that I'm 50 plus, so I need to, I can't go out dancing, there are a number of people my age who still go dancing. But I don't think I was the pub hopping type, or, the partying type or something. And as I said, my idea of fun is to curl up in bed with a good book, right? And have no one disturb me. Now, when I live alone, so thankfully that's not the case. I can read as much as I like. I love music. I cannot imagine writing without music. So the Blackstrat Blues is right at the top of the list. Then I have other favorites like Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like Dire Straits. It depends on the mood again. When I
But
am writing, I like to listen to instrumental music, preferably acoustic guitar or something like that, so that I can concentrate on the writing and not on the music. And then when I'm cooking or something, maybe it's Pink Floyd or even Zero and bands like that, for which I have to thank you guys for introducing me to that kind of music. You guys and my brothers.
Yeah. So you mentioned Blackstrat Blues. I mean, that's an amazing musician, Warren Mendonça, and all. I love all his songs. Be it
If I
Bombay
could
Rain.
meet him once, I would die happy.
Yeah,
I would die happy.
I share the same sentiment with you because there are a few people I want to meet in life, and Warren Mendonça is definitely one of those.
Definitely.
I mean, the
Absolutely.
magic that he creates with a black strat. He plays blues on a black strat, and that's Blackstrat Blues. I mean, that was just me playing with the name, but the magic that he creates with the guitar is unparalleled. Absolutely.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like somebody is wrenching my soul out from me with that music,
Yeah.
And normally Mussoorie is always full of mist, okay, except of course in winters when the sun is really bright. And this year we've been having very peculiar weather. So whenever I go out for my morning walks, it's always Blackstrat blues and the phone in the pocket. And I mean, I can't imagine a life without Blackstrat blues. And I'm so grateful that you Jorhat guys introduced me to that kind of music, Aviraj and Digorshi and Amlan and people like that.
Yeah, I mean, Abhiraj and Devorshi were my seniors in college, in school, and Amlan happens to be my bandmate. We make music together. That brings it. I have one last question. Like you mentioned about Black Side Blues, and I just can't stop fanboying over it. One instrumental by Black Side Blues, which is like numero uno for you. That's the best one, according to you.
All of them, yeah. Bombay Rain, Anuva Sky, North Star, E Major Blues. All of them. I mean, every track has something to listen to over and over again.
Yeah, my all-time favorite is Bombay Rain, but currently I am really stuck with Aurora Borealis.
All of them, I tell you, all of them. And Pink Floyd, I can't understand where their lyrics come from.
Exactly.
And to quote a line from one of the songs that I was listening to recently, I mean, it's an old favorite. The rain fell down on the roofs of uncertainty. The rain fell down on the roofs of uncertainty. Now, where do you get lyrics like that from? These guys are like genius, man.
Yeah, they are the same legends who wrote lines like, "We're just two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl year after year, running over the same old ground. What have we found? Same old fears. Wish you were here."
Dark Side of the Moon and Division Bell and all that. Epic, amazing.
That's the word I was looking for. It's an epic album. Okay, that brings us to the end of this discussion. Thank you so much, Stormy Hazarika teacher, for joining us this evening. Thank you, Abhinav.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, boys, for having me. Thank you for shooting this clip, for having this meeting, and for including me in all your endeavors. Thank you so much. Pleasure to be with you all. Thank you.
The pleasure was all mine. And the pleasure.
Thank you, ma'am.